Tonio and the Branches of Bones. Tonio lives in an iced world of sound. His legs ache as he wades through mounds of fresh snow and frozen fears. Wind bristles through his ears, and not for the first time over the years, he wonders why he is alone. He heaves his load of precious bones to the forest and begins to suppose that this is where he most belongs, far away from all the throngs of people and the bustle of ice. He sees a way that his small life could be contained by bush and branch, by green and brown, and if he had the chance, he thinks he might just live in a tree. He wonders how sweet life may be, surrounded by leaf and mud and twig, full up on berry and nut and fig, swinging his limbs from a branch at noon, hoping that the day is not over too soon, watching the sun fall between the leaves, trying to catch it so it never flees. Then he hears the clink of the branches of bone and knows he could never sleep alone in forests with trees such as this. This is a notion that he must kiss goodbye and remember exactly why he leaves the forest every time. He leaves the darkness just to climb back down the hill to his home where he can shut the door, be alone. He keeps out the darkness and the fear, hugs the heat, safety, cheer. He would never find peace amongst these trees, and so he knows that he must leave. He muses over this predicament as he sets the bones out, clang, clatter, clink. They sing as piles of them grow, of breast, skull finger, hip bone and toe. Tonio fills his crossbow with bones and clambers the trees, a monkey with weight hanging down to his knees. He passes the branches of animals past, of tiger, elephant, chimp, rooster and rat, bones of all peculiar shapes, hanging in lines of thread which takes Tonio hours of labour, eyes squinting as he wavers over whether to use thread black, white or blue, which colour scheme to adhere to. But what takes the hours from his night, he works at incessantly with all of his might, is knowing the note of each little bone, A, B or C, though those more grown tend to run to notes such as D, E and F, and sometimes a G. This is not to suggest that this is when his work is done, for now begins the real fun, finding within which octave a bone sits, within which tree it is likely to fit, and just what tune he'll be able to play, between which bones this bone will lay. He sits by the crackle of fire at night, sits and works, and to his delight, as morning brings itself around, he scans the room, delighted to have found a thread to match every bone, of every colour and every tone, and he knows these bones will never be alone. Their note and octave and colour tone have been decided, and while he has provided a second life for these skeletons, his mind is rife with musings on his next steps, his main act. He smacks his cheek, which is thick with heavy sleep, for though he's exhausted by a night's long work, there is more to be done that he cannot shirk. So as the dawn rings round the hills, he steps in the snow and begins to fill his basket up with bones galore, tunes of magic and tales of gore. The walk is a long and treacherous plight. He would never attempt it in the night, but only as day comes flooding in, and after an hour he finally begins to see the top of the forest's trees, a sight which brings him to his knees, and he must stop and take a breath. Unable to say why he is fearful of death and bones and darkness and of song, when surely he knows that he was the one to bring these animals to their knees, to stab their guts and watch them bleed, knowing he will later thread their bones, carry them up a hill and choose their homes, the branches that he will string together, that will remain there, and will weather the darkness, sun, and pouring rain, never to roam freely again. But their life does not end at this, for Tonio has only one wish. When all the bones have been strung and he is able to stand among his handiwork and survey the trees, the sight of beauty brings his pleads for this cycle never to end. He pleads to the gods to bring him more friends, more badgers and bears and fish in the sea, more zebras and foxes and even the flea. That he might continue his nights of labour, he prays ardently for one last favour. And so he begins to play his tune, as he knows the others are not immune to the trance of the bones he so lightly plays. He sits among branches of bones for days, tinkling out some delightful song, thoroughly aware of the clatter and clong the bones make as they swing in the air, dangling his legs without a care. He sits and hears their paws approach, as they swing, run and race from areas remote to populate his world of ice and smoke. Tonio sits in his branches of bones, grateful that he will never be alone, for who could forget Jemima up there? Tracks sat beside him, and of course the stare of the bones of Frilla just over there. He cocks his ear and hears them. Where? Why, just outside the forest, just over there. Those moving bones cannot be aware of the fate that awaits them in Tonio's lair.